Welcome back to Fiction Kitchen with the Creation Station. This month I'm making the spiced meat and the spicy mushroom skewers from Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. There are so many good recipes to try from this game, and these skewers are both relatively quick and simple, and I love that they come in spicy varieties. To start, you'll need the skewers, of course. Metal or wooden will work. If you're using wooden skewers, make sure to soak them in water for at least 20 minutes before cooking. You'll also need something to cook them in, like an outdoor grill or a broiling pan in an oven. You can use any meat that you like. I'm using chicken, and you have your choice of mushrooms. In the game, these skewers are made from sunshrooms, a fictional mushroom that grows in the sunlight and has a hot flavor. But seeing as we don't have these in our world, I'm going to use these button mushrooms and these shiitake mushrooms and transform them into my sunshrooms. We also need to make some Gouron Spice. Gouron Spice is used in all of the curry recipes in Breath of the Wild, so while I don't have a Gouron with me to help me make it, I can take a guess at how it should be made. To make my Gouron Spice, I'm using Japanese curry powder, paprika, and chili powder. Japanese curry is unique from other types of curries, as it's meant to have a kind of sweet aftertaste, like the Gouron Spice does. And it uses cinnamon, which we can clearly see in the Gouron Spice in the game. I'm mixing together 1 tablespoon of the Japanese curry powder with half a tablespoon each of paprika and chili powder. This is still pretty mild on the spicy scale, so if you love spicy food, I'd recommend adding more chili powder. On the other hand, if you don't like your food to be very spicy, you can just use the curry powder alone. With everything mixed together, I have my very own jar of Gouron Spice. Alternatively, you can use red curry powder if you can find it. It has the right color and it's a bit spicier, but it doesn't have the same distinct flavor of Japanese curry. Start with your meat and cut it into 1-inch chunks. When working with raw meat, always remember to wash your hands thoroughly with soap and water before touching anything else. Place all of your meat in a sealable plastic bag, then add in your Gouron Spice. I recommend using about 2 tablespoons per pound of meat, but the measurement doesn't have to be exact. Seal up the bag and then mix your meat around as best you can. You want that powder to coat everything in the bag, so roll, flip, and shake the bag around until you can see the Gouron Spice spreading everywhere. You can skewer the meat right away, but I'm going to stick mine in the fridge to let the flavors marinate for a bit while I work on my mushrooms. After washing my button mushrooms, I'm cutting each of them in half. In a small bowl, mix together a tablespoon of the Gouron Spice with a teaspoon of oil and another tablespoon of water, adding more water if you need to until you have a runny liquid. One by one, dunk the mushrooms into this liquid. You can also use a cooking brush if you have one. You'll see my white button mushrooms stain to a yellow color, just like the sunshrooms in the game. The shiitakes are a bit different, because the caps don't stain yellow as easily, but I'm still dunking them into the Gouron Spice mixture to get that flavor. Normally you cut the shiitake stems off when you cook them, but I'm leaving them on to skewer them through. Once all my mushroom skewers are prepped, they go into the broiler for about 7 minutes. Make sure to flip them halfway through so both sides get evenly cooked. Once they're done, I pull them out and voila! My spicy mushroom skewers are done. Eat them while they're hot or wrap them in aluminum foil to stay warm. Now it's time to skewer and cook the meat. Try to use up the larger meat chunks first, as we'll have another recipe we can use the smaller pieces for. And make sure not to overstuff your skewer. Remember, the meat is still raw, so wash your hands thoroughly. The chicken will take about 15 minutes to finish cooking, though your meat might cook slower or faster depending on how tough it is and how large your chunks are. Remember to flip the skewers halfway through so both sides cook evenly. When your meat looks done, it's best to grab a large piece off the end of one skewer and cut it in half, to check that it's done on the inside as well. And voila! My spiced meat skewers are done. I still have a few chunks of meat and a few mushrooms left over, so I'm going to make a third recipe from the game, the spicy meat and mushroom skewer, made by combining any meat in the game with the sunshrooms. Because mushrooms and meat have different cooking times, it's best to make these skewers with the smaller cuts of meat, and watch them closely as they cook to make sure they don't char too badly. Once these are cooked through, you can eat them right off the skewer or over a bed of rice like I am here. Overall, it takes a bit longer to cook these in real life than it takes Link to cook them in the game, but it's much easier to acquire all the ingredients, and they taste delicious. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month.